All right, let's get right into it. Today we're looking at a fascinating piece of hardware that's trying to solve one of the biggest problems out there in the real, physical world: trust. I mean, how do you actually prove that something real, like a crop from a farm, is exactly what you say it is to a buyer who's maybe halfway across the planet? Well, this little box just might be the answer.
So to really get this, we've got to start with the core problem. Our whole global economy, it runs on trust. But the old ways of checking things, auditing and so on, it's slow, it's expensive, and honestly, it can be corrupted. And when you can't trust the data about a physical product, the whole system just starts to wobble. It starts to break down. This is the crisis this tech is built to tackle.
To make this all feel a bit more real, let's put ourselves in someone's shoes. Let's imagine you're a farmer. You just harvested a massive bale of industrial hemp. You know it's top quality. But how do you prove that to a buyer in, say, another country? And how do you get paid for what it's truly worth without a mountain of paperwork and a dozen middlemen taking a cut?
And this right here, this gets to the heart of it. All that physical work, the planting, the harvesting, the drying, it creates so much physical value. But the problem is, the digital proof of that value, it basically evaporates into thin air. It just disappears. And that leaves the farmer stuck, struggling to prove their crop's real worth in a huge global marketplace.
So you think the solution would be simple, right? Step 1, you scan the asset, maybe with some kind of AI-powered tool. Step 2, that scan creates an undeniable, totally trustworthy digital certificate. And step 3, based on that solid proof, you get paid. Instantly. Sounds easy. But in practice, this simple idea creates a massive conflict.
And here's where it gets really interesting. That simple goal we just talked about, it creates a paradox. To make it all work, you have to satisfy two powerful and completely opposing demands: the need for total, radical transparency and the need for absolute, rock-solid privacy.
So on one side, you have what we can call the trust mandate. Buyers need to see public, unchangeable proof of that hemp bale's quality. They have to see the data, period. But on the other side, you've got the regulatory mandate. Financial laws, KYC, AML. They demand that the farmer's personal identity and their banking info be kept strictly private. So the big question is, how can a system be both completely public and securely private at the exact same time? It sounds impossible.
Solving this paradox, it requires an incredibly clever architecture. And the answer is to separate the data, basically turning the device itself into a kind of sovereign digital notary for the real world. The solution has a name. It's called a split ledger framework, and the idea is brilliant. Instead of trying to force one system to do two opposite things, you just don't. You create two totally separate specialized data streams. One is built for public proof, and the other is built for private finance.
Okay, let's use an analogy to see how this works, because it makes perfect sense. Think of the private ledger as the bank. It uses serious enterprise blockchain tech, and it stores all the sensitive stuff: the farmer's identity, their wallet info, the KYC data. And access is super restricted. Only regulators and authorized folks can see it. Then you have the public ledger. Let's call that the library. It uses a decentralized, censorship-resistant network, and it only stores the physical facts about the hemp bales. And just like a library, it's open for anyone and everyone to see.
But wait a minute. How do we know the information going into the public library is actually true? That's where the hardware oracle comes into play. The device itself acts as its own sovereign notary. It uses a special tamper-proof security chip to cryptographically sign the data the very instant it's created, right there at the source.
And this is the secret sauce. The cryptographic keys that do the signing, they are literally burned into the hardware silicon. They are non-extractable, you can't get them out. That means it is mathematically impossible to fake a signature from this device. The digital record becomes a direct, undeniable extension of the physical object itself. It's as real as the thing it's measuring.
So now that we've got a handle on its main job as this digital notary, let's peel back another layer. Because this box isn't just doing one thing. No, it's a dual-use machine. It's got a secret second life.
The whole device operates under this strict doctrine called separation of concerns. Think of it as having two different grains. In one zone, it's a regulated, financially compliant tool doing its AI grading thing. But in its other zone, it's a totally unregulated, anonymous, peer-to-peer communication hub for the local community. Two completely different worlds living inside the same box.
So how in the world do you stop what the source material calls regulatory contagion?
How do you keep the regulated side from touching the unregulated side? Well, you build a virtual air gap in the box. The secure financial zone, it gets first dibs on all the powerful computing resources. The public zone, on the other hand, is heavily restricted. It gets zero access to the GPU, a tiny slice of the CPU, and it's trapped in a sandboxed guest network.
And this isolation is just incredibly robust. It's not just one thing, it's multiple layers of defense. For starters, the data for each side lives on physically separate hard drives. Then, the software is locked down in these specialized containers that basically act like virtual jails. And finally, the network traffic is completely segregated, with a strict firewall rule that basically screams deny all, making it impossible for the two zones to ever talk to each other.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. What does all this complex engineering really get us? What does it enable? Well, it's the foundation for a much bigger vision, something called blue-collar AI.
The big idea here is to build a translator layer for the real world. For the very first time, industries that run on physical work, agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, they can finally capture the value they create and turn it into provable, transactable digital assets. It's about translating diesel and sweat into data, and that could unlock literally trillions in dormant economic value.
And the potential applications here are just, well, they're incredible. Just imagine an augmented reality app called WrenchOS that walks a local mechanic step-by-step through a super complex repair. Or a bioasset banker that can turn a pile of agricultural waste into a verifiable energy credit. Or even something like SiteSight, a privacy-first security system that processes video right there on the farm, so you never have to send surveillance data up to the cloud.
So when you get right down to it, this technology is so much more than just a tool for one industry. It's really a framework for building a trusted bridge between our physical and our digital worlds. It's about creating a verifiable history for real things. And that leaves us with a pretty powerful question to think about. What really happens? What becomes possible when every single physical object has a trusted digital story to tell?